the space, infinite expanses. It's the year 2089 and it has to be divided, hopefully not by 0. The RTS game by the indie developer Killsecuregames released its first RTS game called 2089 Space Divided as early access in September last year, and some time passed between the launch and my test. Of course, I can't say anything about the state of the game at launch, only about the version I tested. Well, let's start the story. Yeah, there aren't any. At least not currently. It looks like there's a war over one or more planets or the resources on them. Crystal and Titan can be mined as resources, energy must be generated using power plants. However, there is brief information about the factions called Andera, Redax and the Zan, which are not yet available in early access on the website. But what you will find in abundance on this is information about the buildings and units of the respective factions. I cannot judge whether this data is up to date, but when I see that the news section, the homepage, received the last update on May 17, 2022, I suspect that this information is no longer up to date. The Andera are probably a human race, at least that's how I judged it based on the voiceovers and buildings. I don't know why they are no longer on Earth, they must have had a reason to move on. The second playable faction is the Redax. With their voiceovers, they remind me of StarCraft. But here too, it is not known where they are come from and what exactly they want. The buildings of the Redax are very techy and their appearance should give them a high-tech touch. In my test, only the skirmish and survival game modes were available. Multiplayer PvP will be added in one of the next patches. We choose the first of 4 maps called Ice Desert, and after setting the factions, we start. In general, the loading times of 2089 Space Divided are very fast. And boom! Here we are on the somewhat sparse map, which is supposed to represent an ice surface. The headquarters is already there, I click on it and the lower right corner shows the possible building options. The radar, which is always available, can be found at the bottom right, above which the info box is displayed in yellow. At the top of the screen, there are the menu and bug report buttons, the match timer, available resources and game scores. The UI itself is very simplistic, but it's understandable. Andera units and buildings have their own texture style. I can't describe it. It doesn't look bad, it's kind of its own. Has some Borderlands touch, maybe a bit. Of course, you can use the mouse wheel to zoom deeper into the battlefield and take a closer look at the buildings and units. After the first worker drones were built and the empty area around the headquarters was explored, we also came across Crystal and Titan. Crystal is mined directly by the workers, for Titan a mine must be built on the Titan field. Unfortunately, the Titan field is not marked at this in the game. An attempt to put a mine on it brought clarity. When the mine has been built, the dismantling starts, workers are not needed for the mine. What is also immediately noticeable is that the workers dismantle Crystal on the loop. They don't have to go to a warehouse. The dismantling is instantaneous and without interruptions. In general, it should be noticed that there are no infantry units in Space Divided. Presumably the contested planet should have no atmosphere. The available Andera vehicles are the classic, such as scout units as well as light and heavy tanks. Artillery can also be built. The tanks look okay. The texture style of the buildings is continued here. If you're interested in a reinterpretation of Holiday on Ice with a purchant of bumper cars, then you will love the vehicles. The movement of the unit is more reminiscent of bigger ice skating than tanks. Although the vehicles do not slow down if units are in their way. They are simply rammed in with full force and pushed aside. Fortunately, this causes no damage, at most a little surprise and a grin or two. The workers also move like this, but since they fly, this circumstance is not immediately noticeable and it is also less disturbing. What amazes me is that the units still show this movement 6 months after release. Why wasn't it fixed long ago? A few patches have been released since the early access start, but the movement shouldn't have found a place in the timetable yet. A developer messaged me a few days after the stream asking for feedback. He himself sees the problem with the unit movement and told me that they will work on it. Let's hope so, because I don't think early access is currently a bargain. In general, the early access seems too seduced. A free game test running for a few weeks would have been a better alternative for feedback without disappointing players for not getting what they were hoping for their money. I think the beginning is good and they should build on that to turn things around. The survival game mode is basically a nice idea and could be fun and challenging in theory, but this mode doesn't seem quite finished yet either. The attacking waves are somehow too small, and if you skillfully mine the resources, you can destroy the AI portals that send the enemies into the map. Perhaps these should be placed outside of the map's field of view to prevent this. The controls themselves work very well. Mark the units with a left click, give orders with a right click. Control groups can also be saved. The basic RTS commands are there and work well. In the end, I just have to say that the first impression in the menu is actually very good. The building models also look good for the most part. The units can also be easily distinguished from one another. The existing effect also look good. But what really sucks is the stupid unit movement and the dreary and really boring empty maps. The AI could get an upgrade too, but it's playable. Somehow, it didn't convince me at the moment, which is probably also due to the somewhat high price of the game in its currently status. I hope the developers can conjure up something and give the game that certain something. The developers still have to work on it so that the game is as convincing as the trailer is. Information about the game can be found on the Killsecuregames website and on the game's Steam page. Both are linked in the description below. What is your opinion on 2089 Space Divided? Good RTS or rather a division by zero? Write it in the comments, I look forward to reading your opinion. My name is Mark, thanks for watching, but now...
Battle control offline.